Our story starts off with Jang Sang-woo, our main protagonist, and his problem with not being able to do the things he loves because he doesn't have enough time. He contemplates the necessity of having to do things such as eating, studying, and even things he wants to do like partying with friends and going on dates, which leads him to yearn for having multiple bodies to do such tasks. Sang-woo in pursuit of this enters an awakening program to try and become an awakener. The awakening program is a government-managed program that aids people on awakening their skills by exposing them to mana. Sang-woo is part of group number 37. And he enters the portal to find a confirmation window pop up before him. With the registration to the system complete, he is brought back to find out that his ability is cloning, something that has never been seen before but is seen as useless due to a past hunter's similar ability. With no interest in appraising his new skill to the public, he exits through the portal and heads home. But once he gets home, he decides to check out his new skill and is surprised to find that his ability not only creates a real physical body, but can do anything he tells it to do. The scene cuts off to a much skinnier Sang-woo jogging in a park. This was actually one of Sang-woo's clones, and over a course of a couple months had lost a considerable amount of weight with the help of his cloning ability. Over those months, he figured out some parameters for his cloning ability. The pain and exhaustion suffered by the clones won't affect him. The clone will simply disappear if the clone is damaged or uses energy beyond its limits. Every time his body changes, the clone will copy his exact appearance right away. He is able to give orders even when not near the clones. And finally, 5. It is not possible for the clones to use cloning. With his stats consistently increasing due to the high efficiency of his clones, Sang-woo is in need of money to help him increase his ability further. With no ability to give his clones an order that he hasn't experienced before, he has to pick up a part-time delivery and drop-off job to aid his insufficient funds. Through this job, Sang-woo is also given another part-time job of tutoring one of his co-workers' daughters. With a plan of having his clones do the delivery and drop-off job, he happily accepts the less labor-intensive job. With his tutoring job going well and his clones helping him with the other work, Sang-woo resolves to become a hunter because of their ability to make an absurd amount of money. The profession known as hunter was made due to the result of an incident called the Great Disaster. This event spawned in portals and monsters poured out of them, resulting in nearly half of the population dying. And 23 years after the disaster, the profession still stands, and so Sang-woo goes to the hunter center to get a hunting license. Although the test seems to be on the outside very difficult, Sang-woo passes with ease and wonders if the government purposefully makes the test easier so that more people will risk their lives as hunters. With the license exam over, Sang-woo is greeted by Kang Junmo of the JM agency, a sort of hunter secretary. He informs Sang-woo of the types of services his company provides, but in the middle of his explanation, Sang-woo gets another pop-up informing him that his cloning skill leveled up and that now he can summon 2 clones, prompting him to run home. The scene then shifts into a flashback of Kang Junmo and his experiences with working in the number 1 guild in Korea, the Hyzen Guild. The guild is portrayed as being corrupted, and it is inferred that Kang left and made his own guild due to this exact reason. Some time passes and Kang receives a call from Sang-woo, informing him that he would like to do business with him, much to the pleasure of Kang. They decide to meet up in a coffee shop to discuss Sang-woo's plans of taking up safe hunting jobs. Kang informs him and gives him 2 options for his first job. First, hunting poisonous slimes, which requires full protective clothing due to the poisonous gas and liquid the slimes release. This job is easy, but one would not be able to hunt them for a long time due to the protective clothing melting over time. And second, hunting horned rabbits. Horned rabbits can be hunted for a long time, but it is extremely hard to catch them. Sang-woo likes both the jobs, and Kang asks which one of the 2 he would be choosing. But much to his surprise, another Sang-woo appears before him and signs both the contracts. It is revealed that the one Kang was talking to in the beginning was one of Sang-woo's clones, and Kang is extremely impressed by his skill and is eager to work with Sang-woo. After they settle things, a couple days pass and Sang-woo and Kang go to the hunter center to get authorization for duplicate access to the hunting grounds. He needs this due to his plan of hunting in both grounds at the same time. This is solved without a hitch, and the 2 make their way to the hunting grounds. But as they're on their way, Kang's former boss, the Haesung's guild master named Shin, interrupts them and starts berating them. Sang-woo sticks up for the both of them and prompts the guild master to threaten Sang-woo. But right when things were about to get messy, the guild master's secretary takes him away, essentially saving Sang-woo. After this, Sang-woo and Kang talk on their way to the hunting grounds, and it is revealed that due to the spite of Kang leaving the Haesung guild, the guild master had sabotaged and created terrible rumors so that Kang's new agency would not get any hunters. Time goes by and the scene shifts to Sang-woo finishing up in the slime hunting grounds with half a tank of slime he collected in a couple hours. After talking to Kang about how challenging it is to hunt the slimes for a long duration of time, he sends one of his clones to the hunting grounds to take over. Afterwards, they head over to the horned rabbit hunting grounds, where Sang-woo has to rent equipment such as guns and ammunition to hunt the rabbits. One horned rabbit is equivalent to one tank of slime liquid. With his expectations high and his morale even higher, he begins to hunt the rabbits. But much to his dismay, after 3 hours and wasting all of his ammo, he couldn't even get one horned rabbit. With his head hung, he decides to leave another one of his clones in the rabbit hunting grounds and heads home. Once he gets home, he contemplates how he needs to get a lot stronger, recalling his run-in with the Haesung guild master. He drifts off to sleep and a day passes. The scene cuts off to Kang talking over the phone with a distressed slime hunting ground manager. The manager informs Kang that his contracted hunter has been hunting slimes for a whole 24 hours, filling up all the bins full of slime liquid, all without stopping, prompting Kang to immediately make his way over. While on the phone with Sang-woo to order his clone to stop hunting slimes, Sang-woo also informs him about his other clone and how they need help with the horned rabbits. It turns out the other clone had hunted a total of 200 horned rabbits in the course of one night, something never seen before, instantly making Sang-woo famous on the internet. His clone has offered many guild invitations but doesn't talk to any of the recruiters, causing them to swarm even more. After this continues for a while, the real Sang-woo secretly appears and gives his clone more ammunition to hunt even more horned rabbits, causing the crowd to go even more rampant. The scene then shifts to Sang-woo in the middle of his tutoring job, spacing out thinking how surprisingly useful the clones actually are. He realizes how his clones are very machine-like in the fact that they don't hesitate at all, and how they also have inhuman concentration on the tasks at hand. His daydream is interrupted by Sang-woo's student, Ms. Haeyoung. She asks what Sang-woo was thinking about so intently, and he has to break the news to her that he recently became a hunter. She's really impressed and surprisingly enough asks Sang-woo if he knows the recent hunter all over the internet, nicknamed the God of Aim, which funnily enough turns out to be Sang-woo's clone, with Haeyoung none the wiser to that fact. They converse some more, and they end up making a promise to go to the hunting grounds together if Haeyoung can get good enough grades to get into college, ending the tutoring session there. After the session, Sang-woo heads over to the rabbit hunting grounds, where he meets both Kang and one of his clones. The codes collection for the horned rabbits is going underway, and Kang shares his amazement of how many codes collection personnel he had to hire to transport the 200 hunted rabbits. But just as they are enjoying the benefits of the hunt, a hostile hunter approaches them demanding payment. He is upset about how Sang-woo's clone essentially took all of his prey and demands absurd compensation. Although things seem to be hopeless in regards to handling the situation, Sang-woo thinks of a foolproof plan. He purposefully aggravates the hunter and cleverly makes him punch one of his clones, getting it all on video, threatening to use it to ruin his reputation. This plan is successful, and the hunter has no other choice, so he leaves frustrated. After the run-in with the hostile hunter, the trio are seen at a coffee shop, discussing how the thug that they just confronted most likely was a member of the Haesung guild. They discuss how the Haesung guild likely sent one of their members to harass the new member of Kang's guild, and Kang is very distressed by it, apologizing to Sang-woo. But Sang-woo doesn't mind it at all and firmly stands with Kang, even developing another foolproof plan to get stronger a lot quicker. The plan involves going into the hunter market, a departmental store that has everything a hunter would ever need. In the hunter market, they buy things such as armor sets for the clones and even weapons. But what they really came there for was the familiar skill The familiar skill, if used, enables the user to share their senses and vision with their summons and pets. The methodology behind this plan involves him sending his clones off to training and him using the familiar skill to essentially learn the movements alongside them. Yeah guys, I know, it's getting pretty complicated, but bear with me. Sangavu ends up getting the familiar skill, and he sends his clones off to train in both martial arts and shooting practice. His plan is a massive success, and he can now essentially copy what his superhuman clones can do, thus making him superhuman as well. While sharing senses with his clones, his body receives all the fatigue the clones would experience, so he sits down at a bench to recover. But as he is resting, someone calls him teacher. He turns and is surprised to see that it's his student Heang walking home from studying. They talk about various things, but as they are talking, the thug that approached him at the Horned Rabbit hunting grounds looks at them from afar, with two other thugs planning to get back at him. While the thug was explaining how he is getting blackmailed by Sangavu to his superior, they happen to see Sangavu, so the thugs go up to both Sangavu and Heang with ill intent. They proceed to threaten Sangavu and demand he delete the video he took. After Sangavu doesn't comply with the thugs, they proceed to gang up on him and they get into an all-out fist fight. But using his newly acquired knowledge and the senses he gained with his plan with the familiar skill, he puts up a good fight against the three thugs. But things end up escalating so much to the point that Heang has to step in and help Sangavu using her own awakened powers, which gives Sangavu enough time for his clones to come help. The three thugs are taken care of, and because of all the exhaustion from the battle, Samvalu passes out. The scene shifts into Samvalu and Heang talking about how the famous hunter all over the internet was one of Sangavu's clones, much to the surprise of Heang. They talk for a little more, and Sangavu promises again to Heang that they will go out to dinner because of her help in the fight. The two part ways, and the day ends. A whole month passes, and Sangavu's abilities have become increasingly more overpowered. He can now use a handgun effectively, and he even leveled up enough to the point to get a third clone. After sending his clones out to level up even further, he thinks of another plan to watch hunting videos to gain even more knowledge about the strategies of taking on various monsters. After the clones are done working out, and Sangavu gained a substantial amount of knowledge on the different types of monsters found in dungeons, he meets up with Kang to send his three clones into three separate hunting grounds, all at the same time. All the while he stays home and works on a technique called mana breathing to further his familiar ability use. He ends up getting a meditation skill, something that is not what he was looking for. The scene shifts suddenly to a terrifying mutated fish monster who recently got done killing everyone in a party, presumably where one of his clones would go hunting. Like guys, when I tell you this thing is terrifying, I'm not kidding. The hunting is going well with the other clones, and Sangavu uses his familiar ability and his new knowledge he gained from watching the hunting videos to effectively hunt the lesser monsters of the dungeon. Things are going well until he realizes he hadn't been picking up any of the monster corpses that his clones had been hunting, so understandably chasing the money, he orders his clones to go retrace their steps and pick them back up. But one of his clones comes across a bunch of fish corpses that he hadn't hunted. This is odd because the corpses were slaughtered in a very grotesque way, something no regular hunter could do. And then something horrifying happens. His clone proceeds to find a severed human arm, which shifts the whole atmosphere completely. Just as Sangavu was processing what had happened, the fish monster that was mentioned before murders his clone, breaking the link of the familiar skill, resulting in Sangavu to jolt back in pain, stunned. He frantically orders all of his clones to come to the fish monster hunting grounds to face this mutated fish monster. The fish monster is called Fishman, and it isn't supposed to be in this low-level dungeon, being a rank D threat, something even a full party of E-class hunters can't hunt. Kang immediately goes to call the authorities to close the hunting grounds, but Sangavu sends his clones in to fight it, seeing how they can't just sit and wait for it to kill more people. The clones go into the dungeon, with Sangavu overseeing everything using his familiar skill. They find the fishman eating dead corpses, but this gives them an opportunity to attack first. The fishman is wielding a sort of magical sword, allowing the monster to get stronger by absorbing blood. Sangavu notices that, although the bullets bounced off of it, one bullet actually left a slight wound, prompting him to order his clones to aim for that specific spot. The clones and the fishman have an intense fight with both parties receiving significant injuries. The fishman, after receiving too many attacks to handle, collapses over with Sangavu being happy it's over. But it's not over quite yet. Just when he took his eyes off of it for a second, the fishman disappears, and its bloody footprints indicate it's making its way to the portal back to Earth. The scene shifts to the other side of the portal, where many hunting ground personnel along with Kang are waiting for both Sangavu's clones to higher-level hunters to help defeat the fishman. The hunting ground personnel see the monster sprinting towards the portal, and proceeds to open fire. But unfortunately, the monster makes it through the portal. One of Sangavu's remaining clones is then seen throwing his knife at the monster, but it bounces off of it. And just as things seem to be hopeless, the real Sangavu catches the ricocheted knife and in midair stabs the fishman in the head, killing it. The scene shifts to a Hunter Association hunter, confirming that he had made it to the hunting area where the fish man was found. He is shocked to see that the fishman had been taken care of, and is even more surprised to hear that a F-class hunter killed it. He notices that Sangavu's attacks were all focused on one wound, concluding that that's how he dealt that much damage to the D-class monster, as an F-class hunter. He questions how he was so accurate in shooting a moving target, and puts Sangavu on his radar. The hunter is then seen entering the portal to check if there are any more rogue monsters, ending the encounter there. Sangavu, after defeating the fishman, levels up a lot, and he even gets a couple new skills such as the sprinting skill, shooting skill, regeneration skill, and even a smite skill. His clones are seen hurt, but recovering well, and he explains he has a cooldown for summoning them again to heal the injuries, so he opts to wait it out. Sangavu notices that several items have dropped from defeating the fishman, including the short sword that the monster was wielding, which can absorb blood to get stronger. But one other item was dropped along with it. It's a low-class jewel, but Sangavu mistakes it for a rare item, causing him to have high expectations. But Kang has to break the news to him that it's just a cheap low-class item because it has the potential to have harmful side effects, including turning the user into a monster. Remember this item, it might or might not be of use later. After talking with Kang, he heads home with his two hurt clones, and ends up summoning his third clone again, and orders it to keep exercising while the others are resting. Sangavu, after cleaning himself up, opens up the short sword he acquired from the fish monster, and suddenly remembers what Kang had to say about how it might be a cursed item similar to the jewel. He orders his clone to pick it up for safety, and finds out through his familiar ability that it indeed has a curse on it, which prompts the user to kill and give it more blood. But this isn't much of a concern for Sangavu, because his clones don't get affected by the curse. After things settle down again, he works on his mana breathing skills some more, and recollects how he has to go back to school tomorrow. The scene shifts into Sangavu walking down the hallways of his university, heading off to class. He finally remembers how he doesn't have many friends, because no one had talked to him up until then. But once he enters the classroom, he ends up meeting one of his gym buddies, Kim Kyung-do. They banter a little bit, and they notice that everyone in the class is whispering how much Sangavu had changed, and some even want to go on blind dates with him. Lucky dude. Sangavu doesn't really believe he changed too much, and asks him if he really changed that drastically, which Kim responds, "I bet your parents won't even recognize you," which reminds Sangavu that he was planning to go back home soon. They talk a little bit after, and Kim invites Sangavu over to drink with the boys, but Sangavu refuses, explaining how he had a prior engagement, much to the disappointment of Kim. The scene shifts again to the World Hunter Association headquarters, where they explain how an oracle has predicted a disaster, which involves the creation of a portal and an invasion of hundreds of monsters onto Earth. They further detail that the event might happen in the next couple days, and the suspected location was South Korea. The terrible thing is, the monsters that are expected to come out of it are up to a rank, which means the whole of South Korea can be devastated if they don't evacuate soon. To put it into perspective, the highest rank the military can fight off is D rank, so hunters are the only option they have to fight this disaster. Thus, a meeting calling all the biggest guilds in the country has been created. Park Won-tae is the guild master for the rank number 3 guild in the country, and he is seen talking with Ha Amiho, the guild master for the YOLO guild. The YOLO guild is the rank number 6 guild in the country, and they are seen walking to the meeting room. They make their way in the meeting to find the person we all hate, the rank 1 guild master in the country, Shin Hae-song. Shin proceeds to provoke and berate Park Won-tae about their guild's apparent failed hunting mission, prompting everyone in the room to feel uncomfortable. The tension is broken by the association leader, starting the meeting about the disaster. The association leader explains the situation, and every one of the guild masters voices their concerns over the lack of personnel for this disaster, especially having to cover the entirety of South Korea. Park Won-tae in the midst of the arguments proposes a foolproof plan, involving having each guild prepare a team of hunters that can be dispatched right away in case of a disaster happening in their area. With that in place, when the disaster happens, the guilds will gather in that location and concentrate their manpower there. And as a failsafe, he explains how any guild not wanting to participate will face severe punishment. Everyone votes in favor of Park's plan, and the meeting ends. Sang-woo is seen getting done with his classes and is happy at how fast it went by, but as he is walking home he encounters his student Hae-young, explaining to a stranger that wanted her number that she had a boyfriend. Hae-young sees Sang-woo coincidentally walking by and uses this opportunity to pretend like Sang-woo is her boyfriend, much to the disgust of Sang-woo. The plan works and a few minutes pass and the scene shifts to Sang-woo and Hae-young talking about why she was there in the first place. But just as they're bantering back and forth, Sang-woo gets a message from Kang informing him that his payment for hunting the fishman came in. He sees 50 million won in his bank account, about $40,000, and tells Hae-young that they're going to eat good tonight. He fulfills their promise to go out to dinner from earlier and they head to a Korean barbecue restaurant. They eat a lot of expensive beef at the restaurant and they seem to be having a good time. But just as things seem too good to be true, suddenly all the electronic devices, including their phones and the restaurant's TVS, shows an emergency broadcast notice, advising everyone about the upcoming monster invasion, prompting everyone to evacuate immediately. 3 of Sang-woo's friends, including Kim from before, are seen walking by the same Korean barbecue place that Sang-woo and Hae-young were in. They are seen expressing their disappointment about how Sang-woo skipped out hanging out with the boys for possibly hanging out with a girl. But funnily enough, their concerns come true and they see Sang-woo with Hae-young and are furious, calling him a traitor. But just as they're complaining, their phones also blow up about the monster invasion. They don't seem too concerned about it, and they end up meeting Sang-woo and Hae-young, exchanging formalities. Sang-woo anxiously orders all of them to go home and he sees that everyone around him isn't taking this as seriously as he is. Through this concern, after all of his friends go home, he gives Kang a call and Kang gives him all the details of the event, confirming Sang-woo's overly cautious concerns. Sang-woo expresses his frustration at how the association is handling the situation, not making this invasion notice as serious as it really is. Kang explains that this might be due to the fact that there will be a huge economic impact if their country is on full lockdown for a long duration of time, and the association would not want to be blamed for taking people out of employment, seeing that if they issue a light warning they won't be held liable for their deaths. This rightfully does not sit well with Sang-woo, and Kang also explains that every hunting ground will also be under lockdown, so Sang-woo would not be able to hunt for a while, prompting Sang-woo to go meet up with his family like he planned to do before. He gathers all of his now recovered clones and heads home where his mom, dad, and sister are. He makes it to his parents' apartment and rings on their doorbell, recalling how it really has been 3 months since he last seen them. His mom opens the door and, much to the prediction of Kim Kyung-do, all of his family members don't recognize him in the slightest. They take a second to get used to his drastic change, and the family all see that he had brought some friends with him, but Sang-woo has to explain to them that they're not necessarily friends but they're his clones. So he has to explain everything about how he had become an awakened hunter. His mom voices her concerns about the dangers of being a hunter, and he reassures her that there's no danger due to the nature of his skill. Sang-woo also voices his concerns about the upcoming monster invasion and asks why they didn't evacuate to the shelters already. His dad explains that he still has to work to provide for the family and they can't necessarily afford to stay at the but deep down Sang-woo knows of the severity of this monster invasion, and so to compromise, he decides to stay with them for the time being. The family proceeds to have dinner and Sang-woo brings out the leftover expensive Korean beef he got at the restaurant, much to the surprise of his family. He is happy hanging out and eating dinner with his family again and thinks to himself that he should have visited sooner, seeing their hospitality. But just as they were about to start eating, the building explodes. Sang-woo opens his eyes after blacking out and sees his whole family slumped out on the floor. In a daze he sees that the apartment is in shambles and he sees a horrific number of monsters pouring out of the portal that happened to spawn right next to his house.